Okay, so we're going to start on the floor and we're going to stay on the floor for this one. And we'll use something that we can hold between the knees. So I have a block. It's foam. It's very light. You can also use something heavier, or you can use like a ball that's squishy. And we're going to start just by lying on the floor. And we're just holding this. So the purpose of this thing is just to invite a little more attention to the position of the legs. And if you need, so since we need to hold it up, it activates the inner thighs just a little bit. The feet, we come back to this sense of samastiti, equal weight on both feet. So adjust the feet as you need to. Feel the back of the body. So depending on the shape of your body, it may not be comfortable first just to lie down here. We might need to make some adjustments. So one way we can make adjustments is by bringing the knees in, lifting the hips up a bit, rocking, and putting the hips back down. And all we want to do first is feel, if we can, feel like the spine, like from the between the shoulders, basically, all the way to the sacrum. If we can feel a little bit of contact with the floor. So this is sort of an unnatural, or not the typical shape of the spine when we stand in gravity. So normally there's a little arch under the low back. Depending on what's happening in the buttocks, that may be possible to bring the lumbar spine all the way to the floor, or it might be a little bit elevated, and both are fine. But what we want to try to do here is see if we can bring the sacrum. So the sacrum is the part where your spine comes down, and there's a little square almost, or triangle kind of shape, bunch of fused vertebrae that go into the pelvis, the Kreuzbein in Deutsch. And see if you can find the sacrum. And so we think of the sacrum like the face of a clock. So the part of the sacrum that's closest to your heart is like the 12 o'clock. And the part close to the tailbone is like 6 o'clock. And then the sides are like 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock. And so first we just want to see if we can bring the sacrum down towards 6 o'clock. So 12 o'clock sort of lifts. And then rock the pelvis so that we feel 12 o'clock. So just go back and forth between 6 o'clock and 12 o'clock. So see if you can bring the sacrum into the floor like that. Also notice if there's any discomfort here. So one thing that can happen, the sacrum is a joint, actually. It's connected to the pelvis on each side. For most people and in most circumstances, this joint does not move. The one time it's designed to move is if a baby comes through the pelvis. And then the sacrum lifts away to create more space. If you're hypermobile and you've given birth through the pelvis or just have been pregnant, this joint might not be so stable anymore. So it can often happen that there's slips on this side. So older women in particular who've gone through childbirth may find some sensitivity in this area of the body. And then now that we've been doing 6 and 12, let's see what 3 and 9 feel like. So just don't let the thing between your knees drop, but feel like the sacrum touches down on the 6 o'clock side, or sorry, the 3 o'clock side and the 9 o'clock side. So just feeling the sacrum. And then we're going to go all the way around the clock. So 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 12 o'clock. So just making that circle clockwise. And then counterclockwise. So just feeling that whole Good. And then bring the sacrum back to neutral. And then we're going to do, I'm going to call it the little bridge. So it's not meant to be a big, deep back bend the way that we're going to do it. We're just going to lift a little bit up. And instead of making an arch in the back, you're making like a ramp. So it's like a straight line from the knees to the shoulders, holding this block or whatever you have between the knees. Just pausing for a moment. And then slowly lower down one vertebra at a time. So upper back first, then the middle back, low back, sacrum, 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock. And then as we go up, 6 o'clock, 12 o'clock, then slowly lift the spine up, not coming all the way up, but creating like the straight line. Hold there for just a breath or two. Feel, don't let the block between the knees drop. And slowly come down. First the whole spine, and then the 12 o'clock point, the 6 o'clock point. And just do like 2 more times like that. Coming up slowly, pausing for just a breath or two. Don't let the thing between the knees drop. You can, of course, practice this without the block as well. Gives you a little more freedom to move. But just notice what happens when we ask the knees to stay in this position. And then after you complete both rounds, we can take the block away for a moment. Take one knee towards you and take the other knee towards you. And so here, decide what feels best. So for some people, having the knees close together feels fine, feels nice. The idea with this posture, you might not feel too much here. So for many people, whether we can keep one foot down and just do one side at a time. When we bring the knee towards the body, the response is that this part of the body lengthens a little bit. So for some people, this becomes a little sort of stretch for the low back. If your hips are very, very loose, you might do this and feel nothing in your back. So one thing we can do is we can take the knee a little bit wider and bring it towards you. And just somewhere in this positions, either from the knee up top or the knee to the side, just notice what you feel, if anything. So one of the challenges with working with a hypermobile body is sometimes you're in a class, a movement class or yoga class, and they'll say, oh, feel this stretch. And you're like, what stretch? I don't feel anything. And sometimes a teacher who doesn't know your body might just think that you don't get it. So just know that if you're not feeling a sensation of stretch, you're fine. What I'm doing here is just creating a counter movement for the joints in your body and the muscles in your body. And it's perfectly fine if you don't feel any stretching or any particular sensation. Also notice if you take the knee towards you, you might be feeling it more here than in the back, because this is actually a bit of a stretch for some deep muscles in the front of the hip. So notice if that's where you feel it most. In my experience, I feel it more in the front than I do in the back. But that's just a nice transition. And so I told you if you wanted to, you could have some sort of belt or strap or even towel or sock, because I just want to be able to hold on to the back of the knee. So depending on shapes and sizes of bodies, it might be more comfortable to use something aside from the hands behind the thigh here. So it might be that if we have some of us, if we're trying to hold on behind the knee, the shoulders get pulled a little bit forward. So we want the shoulders not to work too hard. We want the upper back to stay flat comfortably on the floor. And so if it's more comfortable for you to use a strap or something to hold the leg instead of wrapping your hands, then please do that. If it's easy for you to take the hands behind the knee, then just do that. That's also fine. So I'm going to do the strap version here just to give you a visual for that. So hands can just be behind the knee if that works, otherwise just one leg. So now we're going to bring the knee towards us again. And then we're going to hold that knee close to us and inhale, extend the leg as much as you can, flex the foot. So if you're holding the knee towards you, you might find it more challenging. Well, we're a hypermobile population here. Might be more challenging to straighten the leg. So you can keep the knee towards you, let the leg be not fully straight, that's fine. Try to straighten it as much as you can. This is working on building muscle in the front of the leg. So we're not trying to stretch back here. We're trying to build muscle in the front. And then on an exhale, you'll release, let the foot relax. Inhale, flex the foot, toes towards your face. And exhale, bend. So just holding the knee towards you. So most classes that I teach, I have people keep the leg like this because they can't have a straight leg when the leg is back. If it's easy for you to have a straight leg with it back, then keep it close. We're not worried about stretching. We want to build strength. So keeping the knee close makes us work towards straightening the leg because we don't have the resistance of the tightness of the joint slowing us down. So this is one of the few times where it's perfectly fine to have a higher range of motion and work at that part of things. If this irritates your hip, however, let the knee move back and just straighten the leg like this. Okay. And then wherever you are, the next time you come up, we're going to release the hold of the leg and take the arms out wide. And try to keep the leg up and keep the foot flexed. It's fine if the leg is not straight. And now we're gonna keep the leg up for a while. And what I always tell people is a little bit of violent shaking is okay. So there might be some weakness in some of these small muscles here. You might see some jittering happening. So now we're just going to pay attention to the lower leg, ankle, foot. So here we're going to point. And when you point, see if you can involve the toes a little bit. If you tend to get cramping, be careful. And then flex it back. It's a good counterpost to the cramping in the bottom of the foot. So gently point the foot. And if you have a strong tendency to cramp, find the range of motion that you can do. So flexing is usually pretty safe. You might have to leave the toes alone, not do any pointing, or you may be able to slowly point and not cramp. So let's practice that. And if you do tend to get cramps easily, this is something you can practice with the toes. Practice gently pointing and flexing. And then you're going to flex the foot one more time. And now you're going to imagine you can take your pinky towards the floor. So we want to lengthen a little bit the inside of the ankle, and we want to contract the outside of the ankle. So see how much movement you have in the foot. The movement will be the sum of how much flexibility you have in the joint and how much strength you have in this outer edge of the lower leg. And then come back to the center and try the other side. So now the big toe comes towards the floor on the side. You're just turning the foot to the side. Notice what the sensation is there. Notice how the muscles work there. And then we're going to pause for a second and let's release that leg. We're going to stay on the same side. Just let's assume here that doing the snack, we might need a little break between the rounds. So that's the first part of this. We're going to stay on the same side, and now we're going to work a little bit the hip side. So we work the knee in the center of the leg, work the ankle and foot on the other side, and now we're going to come to the bottom part of the leg, which is the hip pelvis area. So again, we're going to extend the foot up. You don't have to flex the foot this time. It can be a little bit more relaxed. We're going to keep the pelvis on the floor, so both butt cheeks stay on the floor. And all we're going to do is we're going to open this leg out to the side as far as we can without lifting this other hip off the ground. So it might not be very far for you, and that's fine. And then bring it back in. Let's see if we can integrate it with the breath a little bit here. So inhale, opening. Exhale, closing. Inhale, open. Exhale, close. Now find the rhythm of your own breath. I might be breathing a little slow for you, so see if you can find a rhythm that works for you. Go as far down as you'd like, but don't lose the position of the hip. So just because we have the flexibility doesn't mean we have the strength. So let's work on strength here. So we're just moving up and down a few times. And if at any point you need a break, just take a break. You can, if you're listening to this as a recording, you can pause it. Everybody here live, you have to suffer with me live. So just about 6 times we did there. You can either take a pause now, or if you're okay with the stamina to do a little more, we're going to keep a straight leg and move it towards the floor on an inhale. As far down as you can go, but keep the low back touching the floor. And as you exhale, we'll come back up. Inhaling down. Maybe you're coming just halfway down today. Exhale up and keep the low back on the floor. Inhale down. Exhale up. Maybe you can do 3 more. Maybe you need a break. So decide what feels best for your body. I'm just going to do the last 3 here so you can use it to support you as a recording. And then after your last one, you're just going to release that leg down to the floor, pause, and feel. So the nice thing about this sequence is depending on where you are in strength and stability in the hips and legs, you might be able to do more or a little less. And as you grow stronger, you can do a little bit more. Maybe just let the knees rock a little bit side to side. If you need to do any other movements, if you feel like there's a tightness, you need to sort of reset or shift a little bit, feel free to do whatever movement you want. And then when you're ready, we're going to switch legs. So we're going to come to the other leg. So the hands behind the knee, or we use our strap or towel to hold on to the knee. So this side, I'll keep the hands here. So we're going to gently pull the knee towards us. And then just about 6 times, we're going to inhale, flex the foot, try to straighten the leg, and exhale, release the foot, release the leg. Find the rhythm of your breath. Then inhale up. Exhale down. About 3 more. And then after you finish 6 times or so, we're going to bring the leg up, flex the foot, take the arms out, hold the leg up. So this is always interesting. The second side gives you some perspective on symmetry. So now we can see if there's a difference here, right and left. So first, just holding the leg, notice if it feels stronger or maybe weaker on this side, or if there's just something that's a bit different. And then we're going to take our attention now to the foot side of the leg. So again, trying to point and flex. So notice if this ankle feels different, if this foot feels different. For me, my left foot is kind of my crampy foot, and the right foot doesn't really cramp very easily. at least today. So just notice just this simple movement. There's a lot of small muscles that help stabilize. So for those of us with hypermobility, we hear a lot of like, oh, I tripped on nothing, you know. So energizing, strengthening, and working with these lower leg, ankle, and foot muscles really helps us find a little bit more stability in our sort of wobbly foundation. And then we'll flex, keep the foot flexed, take the little toe and tip it down towards the floor. So you're just lengthening the inside of the lower leg and contracting the outside of the lower leg. So this is like the strength we need if we step on a rock or if we're stepping on the edge of something and we feel a little bit of instability, that it doesn't knock us all the way to the floor. We can come up and then switch. So now the big toe side comes down. You might notice one side of your leg feels stronger or tighter than the other side. But also, foot circles are always a nice combination of all those movements. But then let's release the leg a moment, pause. So this is that little pause between activities. As you get stronger, you can keep the leg up this entire time. And there's a sequence I do. I actually have it online, and that's it's this sequence, but a little bit stronger on one side. You can find that on my YouTube channel. So for now, when you're ready, we're going to come up. Keep the arms out. The pelvis is going to stay like it is, so both butt cheeks on the floor. You're going to inhale, open as wide as you can without losing the position of the hip. And exhale, bring it in. So inhaling, open. Exhale, close. Good. Just 3 more times like that, as far down as you comfortably can without losing it. So if you're the kind of person who likes to see results and see progress, each time you do this, you might find you can comfortably come down a little further. So when people aren't working with hypermobility, what limits them is how much they can open their leg. And people who are very flexible, very open in the hips, you can go down as far as you like, but if you try to control the movement, then it becomes a big challenge. And again, you can take a pause here if you need it, or if you're comfortable moving forward from here, we'll do 6 times. Inhale, the legs straight down as far as you can without moving the low back. Exhale, up. Inhale down. Exhale up. Inhale down. Exhale up. 3 more times, finding your own rhythm. Then after the last time, just take that leg down, pause here. You can either maybe stretch the other leg out if that feels okay. Just take a moment, feel the body. So this variation, we keep one foot on the floor through these movements. Again, if you're working with this and you want to progress and continue building strength, you can take this foot off the floor. That creates a little more instability, so it means the muscles have to work more. But this foot on the floor creates a nice foundation so that we can isolate the muscles we want to isolate without having to work too hard. So just pause and feel the body. We're going to stay on the back. So from here, I'm just looking at my notes to remember which practice I wanted to do with this one. Okay, so we'll do this. So we're going to do a twist, and we'll do it one of 2 ways, depending on what's happening with your body. So one way we can do it, we can take the feet a little wider apart than the hips, keep the feet on the floor. And you can just twist this way with the knees. So exhaling down, inhaling up. The twisting here will come in sort of the lower part of the spine. If there's some instability in the sacrum, the iliosacral joint, this might be a nice safe way to twist without putting too much stress on that part of the body. If that part of the body feels pretty stable, like you had mentioned, Sophie, that we can take the knees up. The hands here are palms down. That creates a little stability for us. So we want to kind of try to keep the upper body as an anchor, stable. And then we exhale, twist the knees towards the floor. Don't lose control of the motion, so don't flop. So control the motion down and control the motion up. So inhale up, exhale down. The arms are out extended, so they help control the movement. So you might be pushing with one arm as you lift up, and you're pushing with the other arm to slow you down as you move down. Okay, so feet can stay on the floor or they can stay up like this. And again, the more advanced, the one that requires more strength of this one, is to straighten one leg or straighten two legs. Two legs is kind of crazy, but you can definitely do it as you build strength. And for those of us who have challenges with the ribs, one thing that I only heard other hypermobile people talking about is that sometimes their rib slips out of joint just a little bit at the back. Mine has done that. This particular position is very similar to what physical therapists sometimes do to our bodies to help get the ribs back in place. So this is a kind of a nice way to manage some of the middle and upper back strangeness that can happen with very soft collagen. And then eventually we're going to stay on one side and we're going to straighten the top leg. So for some of it, this is pretty easy. You can hold on to the toes or the feet. But what I'm going to ask you to do is something a little different. So if you're holding onto the toes and feet, that kind of focuses on stretching here a little bit. And again, we're not looking to stretch or open any joints. Instead, what we're going to do is create a little space here between the two knees. So this leg is a little bit up, away. It's not resting. It's up and away. So first, just holding that leg, you might notice is a little bit of effort. And now we're going to take the leg and we're just going to lift it up a couple centimeters and lower it down a couple centimeters. So just micro movements. Notice what is there. So we're kind of isolating some small muscles here. So you might realize very quickly it's like, oh, it's on fire. So at any point you need to rest, just let the leg come down, let all the muscles relax. And then if you want to go another round, just little bounces again. But this time, let's rotate the toes towards the ceiling and do the same movement. Just little up and down with the toes pointed towards the ceiling as much as possible. So this shifts a little bit the focus. Again, notice what's there. If you are really isolating some of the small muscles, and if they're a bit weak, you might notice very quickly they get warm and overworked, and then you just rest. And then I'll invite you to try a third round if you like. And if it's too much right now, just rest through the third round. And the third round, we're going to lift the leg again and rotate the toes downward. So now the heel is up. And we're just going to lift the heel up and down a few times. So if you're doing this on your own, this is a great thing to do anytime you're just like lying on the floor. You don't even have to like go through everything, the whole preparation part. Just twisting and going up and down. This is a great place to do some contemplation, meditation, chanting, watching a cartoon. I've done that before too. And then when you feel complete, we're going to bring one leg on top of the other again. So we're back in the twist. We'll come to the center for a moment and pause. So put the feet to the floor. Notice what you feel. So when we do an asymmetric posture like this, when we come into a neutral position, it's pretty normal to feel differences between the right and left side. And then you're going to switch. So you're going to just stay where you are. I'm going to switch over so I keep looking towards you here. So we're going to now twist with the legs to the other side. And we're going to do that same sequence. So we'll extend one leg. And so we begin with the leg on top, knees touching. And then we lift that leg away and just do several times. Just that little bounce, controlling the movement up and down, up, down. And if you're doing this, do it just as long as I do, or just notice what you're feeling. And what we want to do is try to energize and awaken these smaller muscles. So we're not moving the whole leg. It's not a big movement. It's just a small movement. Small movements will engage different parts. The big movements, we get the glutes working here, the piriformis, we lift up. We just want to do, do, do. That's the smaller muscles. When you've had enough bouncing, you just rest. And then we'll do 2 more rounds if you like. At any point you rest, you just rest and watch. We're going to lift the leg up, rotate the toes towards the ceiling, and just take a few bounces here. And again, notice what responds. So I might be asking you to pay attention to a particular body part, and there might be some random body part doing something weird and crying out. So just notice what that is with you. Release when you're ready to rest it. And if you like, I'll invite you to a third round, but this time with the foot pointed downward. And again, just small movements up and down, just a couple centimeters, controlling the movement. And in these practices, I'll say, if you feel the burn, that means to rest. So just go until you really feel it activating. You don't need to create injury here. When you've completed, just pause a moment. Come back to the center. Just let the knees shake side to side. And then we're going to lie on one side. So if you have like something that you can support the head, so we're going to lie on one side. And if the shoulders have some sensitivity, or just because we have hypermobile shoulders, I find that having a good support for the head takes some pressure off the shoulder joint. See if you can make sure the head feels nice and and now we're going to find a line here. So the line is shoulder to hip to feet. So it's like there's a wall behind you, and your buttocks, your shoulders, and your feet are all touching that wall behind you. Now the feet are going to stay together. The hips are going to stay exactly in this position. They're not going to move from here. And we're going to look for about maybe 12 to 15 repetitions. Inhale, open. Exhale, close. So you can go for as many repetitions as I say, but just like the last exercise, this is an isolation exercise. It's working on these small muscles on the outside of the hip. Whenever you feel these muscles have been activated or feel warm, then you just rest. Otherwise, we'll keep going. I'll do it until I've done about, let's say 12. Whatever speed you're going is fine. You can go faster than me, slower than me. Just don't let the hips roll backwards, or you start to build and activate other muscles. We want to keep focusing on these smaller muscles, help to stabilize the hip. Ooh. And then when you're done, rest here. You can maybe stretch this leg out if that feels good. And then just to kind of balance things out, you're going to take this top leg and slide it here over and extend the foot that's below. So I have one straight foot out, this upper leg is over. So adjust yourself however you need to. Try to keep, again, the left hip on top of the right hip. You might need a pillow or a block or something here. I'll use my block. It might create a bit too much torque in the hip. You can keep that hip lifted. But the leg that's straight out behind you, just keep that leg straight. And then you're just going to lift. And see what happens. And if you're bony, like I know the one person here is bony, my kid, you make sure that you have padding under your hips on the ground. I have a nice carpet here. Make sure you have a blanket or something under it if you need it. And again, it's not a big motion, but it's enough to activate the inner thigh. The leg straight lets us use gravity. If you're feeling very adventurous and strong, you can even put weight on the ankle here. Otherwise, we just do a lot of repetitions of these little movements. I'm just going to do about 3 more here. That'll bring us to about 12 again. And just like the last time, as you need to rest, rest. Complete the round. Pause. Notice what you feel, and then as you're ready, just roll over to the other side. I'm going to turn myself all the way around. So again, you're not staring at my back here. So again, support the head. Ooh. One hip on top of the other. So this is my right hip on top of my left. Make sure the shoulders feel safe and stable and supported. Feet stay together. Inhale, open. Exhale, close. Good. You can move with the breath, whatever rhythm your breath is. I'm just going to count 12 breaths here. You may be doing more or doing less or taking a break in between. With this exercise, as you feel stronger, you can do 2 or 3 sets of 12 or 15 movements. And again, noticing this side. So sometimes if we have a hip that's a little bit weaker, we may not be able to lift the knee quite as high on this side, or we may notice that it gets really warm very quickly on this side. So we may do less reps. So you don't have to force symmetry into the body, but recognize if there's one side that's a bit weaker, we build a relationship with the side, we recognize where it is right now, and see how we can support it. So if you have one side that's weaker, maybe you want to do 2 reps on this side, do a few more repetitions on the other side. So once we rest from that, we're going to move the top knee forward and extend this lower leg out again. Again, keep the hips from rolling forward or backwards. That's actually why I'm using the block here. It helps me keep my hips a little more imbalanced here. And then we're just going to lift and lower. Again, it doesn't have to be a big movement. Make sure that the bone isn't digging into the floor, so have something under the hip if that's happening. Some of us naturally have more padding. But if your padding is a little thin, then just add some padding to it. Yeah. And whenever you complete that second side, you can come to lying on the side, or if it feels good, lie on the back one more time. And this will be our last little movement together in this little yoga snack. So now bring the ankles together and the knees together. So the ankles are touching, knees are touching. And then slowly inhale, let the knees move towards the floor. And slowly, slowly exhale, knees moving together. Inhale, knees to the floor, and exhale, knees together. Nice and slowly. And eventually, if it feels nice, you can rest for a moment with the knees apart. But for some of us, that may irritate the hips a little bit. So you can find any position. You can lie down in kind of a shavasana sort of position. You can come back with the cushion lying on the side or with a little support under the knees. I just want you to be able to feel the body for a moment, particularly this part of the body from the pelvis downward. You know, as we work with the hips and pelvis, we're working with the feet, with the knees, with the core, with the back. And it's not completely unrelated to the shoulders and arms and neck. So these yoga snacks are taking different pieces of the body and focusing on them. But as we practice an integrated full practice, we link those individual pieces together to create that sense of stability and integration through the body. And then we'll complete this yoga snack here.